Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And welcome to the apartment. On another nice sunny day.
Finally,
it's Simpsons clouds again, which is kind of like.
Oh, that was the worst voice ever.
Yeah, it is. I gotta say, it is nice out. But fair
this
warning. So okay, there goes a T. I don't think most people are hearing that.
No.
I think when we can hear it now, but it's like kind of a non-issue because I think a lot of stuff drowns out. So we're actually good. So I was about to apologize for any of the extraneous noise, but
It means me.
maybe it's irrelevant. Man, I was kind of wanting to go to that midnight Family Guy screening last night, but I didn't have it in me.
I'm not going to the theater just to sleep. I've got a bad history of midnight screenings.
When's
I
the last
always
time
fall
you went-
asleep.
When's the last time you went to a midnight movie?
And stayed awake through the whole thing?
Yeah. Oh,
Ugh.
really?
Yeah. I think it was
That'll do you in.
I was probably at the drive-in
Midnight.
as a kid. I fell asleep at The Godfather 3. I fell asleep at Dick Tracy. I fell asleep at Batman.
Huh.
All of them. Slept right through.
That midnight movies will do it. I think the last one I went to was Rolling Thunder over at the Coolidge a couple months back. And they had it was the latest Q&A I had ever been to. The screenwriter was there, and he just published a book, so he was doing a signing across the street at Brookline Booksmith. And so they showed Rolling Thunder. I fell asleep. I missed like 45 minutes, a good chunk of it. And then he did the Q&A at 1:45 in the morning with like 10 people, and I asked most of the questions, and he thanked me afterward.
I didn't see the full movie, but let me ask you some questions.
It would have been
What
a
did I
much
miss?
better. The thing with like Rolling Thunder would have been a better film had Tommy Lee Jones played the William Devane character.
I don't think I saw it.
I imagine I keep thinking of William Devane being he was a big star for like I don't know a couple of months in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he was totally full of himself on screen. Would have been much better if Tommy Lee Jones.
Didn't he play Kennedy's a lot? William Devane?
Yeah.
He's got that
I
kind of face.
I really liked him in season 4 of 24. He was good in that. And then the other thing I remember him for, which kind of relates to this other book I want to read, which is there's this company called Soft Skull Press, and they publish these essays on film. I forget what it's called. Deep Thought. Deep Thoughts on Film or something like that. And so they have a series of books. One of them was on They Live and Heathers, and one they just came out with is on the Bad News Bears Breaking Training. Who'd have thought
They
that
wrote
there'd
a
be
book on that?
Who'd have thought? But the guy who writes this terrific
Sure, it's
website.
not a pamphlet. It's a book. It's like hundreds of pages.
Well, it's about how a movie emotionally affects someone. I don't think it's about the quality of the film when you're talking about the Bad News Bears Breaking
It's
Training.
a study. It's a cinematic study.
And there's something, these, like Jonathan Latham wrote the They Live essay, which is, I don't know how long the book is maybe over 100 pages, but they're small. Anyway, the one that's on the Bad News Bears Breaking Training is written by the guy who has this website called cardboardgods.net. And basically it's his premise, the premise of what he does is he takes his 70s baseball cards, the ones that his mom was about to throw away that he saved, and each of these individual cards represents an update. And so he wrote the essay on the Bad News Bears and Breaking Training. And I digged that film when it came out. It was I loved the Bad News Bears. I was all about it. I even loved the third movie, even though it was so obviously bad.
Didn't the remake
With Tony
kill you
Curtis.
with Billy Bob Thornton? Didn't that kill you?
Yeah, it was because what's his name, Linklater, had done such a good job with the kids in School of Rock that there was something lacking with the Bad News Bears. I think it was like the formula idea that Paramount thought that they could replicate what happened in School of Rock with the Bad News Bears remake, and you don't have Walter Matthau, and you don't have what's so great about the kids in the original film was the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess they were okay in the remake, but man, in the original, Ogilvy Tanner Boyle, the fat kid who is going to stick the bat where the bat where the sun never shines, and it's
the guy who went on to
Jackie
be
Earl Haley.
Jackie Earl Haley, yeah.
Tatum O'Neal. It's terrific. And Michael Ritchie, I think, is a very underrated director. And someday someone will appreciate his work and not let Dr. Detroit get in the way of.
Now you see, I never saw Bad News Training, Bad News Bears, and Breaking Training. Never saw any of them.
You have not seen the Bad News Bears?
Nope. But
John, I'm going to turn around
and
pull the movie off my shelf and loan it to you.
Okay.
It's,
but I am a big fan of Dr. Detroit. So
wrong way.
I was on TV recently. My brother's like, "Why are you taping this?" I was like, "It's Dan Aykroyd is his best."
That was Dan Aykroyd at the top of his game.
You bet.
When his name could make a movie. And,
yeah, was that either
Detroit.
before or after Trading Places? He was riding the Dan Aykroyd wave.
After,
and then it crashed pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, it was the Dan Aykroyd Chevy Chase career crash.
Yeah, combined in.
Why do I laugh so much at things? Why do I laugh so much at just,
I don't know.
I got to stop that.
Yes, control yourself.
Anyway, not all of us have the. What was it? What is that movie that Chevy Chase did? Was it Memoirs of an Invisible Man? Yeah, that was the one that.
No, there was there was one where it was Chevy Chase, Demi Moore.
Chevy Chase and Benji. That was one of the downers of his.
Yes. Oh, and Under the Rainbow.
And Under the Rainbow. Kind of like it.
Yeah, you have to. But there was one he did it was Demi Moore, John Candy, and Dan Aykroyd, where he got lost in the junkyard, and it was like Dan Aykroyd played a judge who had a penis for a nose. Yeah.
You got me.
I remember laughing when I saw it, and then I went back to it, and I was like, oh, I should be ashamed. But they should, too. So
I'm eager to read the Bad News Bears book, hopefully next week. I'd like to cover more books on this. I don't know if more... You're like, Steve, get it up.
No, I can't remember the last book on film that I liked.
All About Eve.
Well, that was a while ago. I read a biography of Audrey Hepburn, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
I've got a biography of Steve McQueen that I just finished. That's pretty good.
Yeah, there is a new one out. Is that the one?
No, this is an old one. My problem is I'm not a big fan of gossip, and too many books get gossipy.
Yeah.
And I hate Hollywood celebrity gossip stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't read a lot of books like that. And I'm not really I'm not a big fan of those books that, like I tried to read the John Ford book, and it was like 1,500
those
pages,
things
and
can
I was
just
like,
get.
Oh my God, stop it! No one cares that much about John Ford.
It can just get super dry. I mean, I love film theory, and there's a book that Sarah brought home the other day that she's reading, and I'm eager to read it. It's collected essays on film theory, and it can get really dry.
Yeah.
But I love if I had my choice. I mean, the first I make a beeline for the film section every time I go to the bookstore, and I'm into like the history of film criticism. I'm into that kind of like theory of it, and some of it I gotta admit I don't get it all the time, and it becomes very dry. But I keep plugging away,
I have trouble reading.
I don't know how many times I've read about the history of Cahiers du Cinema, but there's this new book on the history of the founding of the Cannes Film Festival that I think is very interesting.
I've got a book about Toronto I should give you.
The Toronto
Film Festival, yeah. I know the guy who wrote it. I've never read it, but I
guess that fest has gotten to its point. It's now self-referent.
Yes.
It's a black hole of all kinds of. It's big.
Did you know the Boston Film Festival starts this week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares?
Whatever.
Yeah, it's a bunch of documentaries at a theater that I thought was closed.
It's like eye rolling. I do like the fact that they're using the Stewart Street Theater, though.
But I thought that was closed.
Well, the story, as I've been told, is that they had been getting complaints from the hotel there and the other business owners about the cinema, and so they've, I guess, worked out some kind of agreement where David, the guy who runs it, doesn't show films all the time, but they can sometimes.
Like rent it
and
out.
it's like,
That's a
So,
shame. It was a shame
but
because he was a
it
nice
really
guy.
it really needed help. It really,
Yeah.
and I'm a little disappointed in the Boston film community for not, we've got to be more
Well-
active about stuff here. Like, just when it comes to actually saving or helping promote a movie theater, I mean, it's not like he's making a ton of money, but it's sort of like what could we as the film community in Boston do to help Stewart Street? Because we often, I mean, it was like an afterthought. Like people just forget about it.
Well, but he wasn't showing anything I wanted to see. It was usually a week, 2 weeks behind anything else.
It's an art house place.
But no, it wasn't even that. I remember, that Colin Firth movie.
King's Speech.
No, one before that.
Simple
Guy,
Man.
Simple Man, yeah.
Yes.
He was showing that
Single Man. Simple Man was.
He was showing that a month after it left every other theater. I'm like, why? Why are you showing me that? I don't mind you showing me something. I don't mind art house, and I don't mind it being something I can't see anywhere else. That's what art houses should do. But don't show me something that it's like going to you go up to the Somerville, and you see something 5 weeks after it's left because it's only $5 to get in.
Yeah, but he's only got one screen.
The programming never appealed to me, so I don't think I'm negligent in not supporting it.
It's the art house thing. Plus the area, it's in the theater district. I don't know. If there's one thing I think I'd like to learn more about, it's film distribution and who gets what on what screen around here.
Talk to George Mansour. Do you know him, George
No.
Mansour?
No.
If he's ever at a screening, I'll introduce you. He used to be. He booked the Orson Welles. He books the Avon in Providence. He's got stories about like driving around with copies of Pink Flamingo, reels of Pink Flamingo in his car trunk, just bringing them to theater so we could show at the gay movie house over across from the Emerson or the Cutler Majestic. Used to be what was that what was the Cutler Majestic? Essex Street? No. Anyway, George is a good person. He'll tell you about that stuff.
I'm apparently
And Garen.
it's a real battle.
Garen Daly knows all about film distribution too, so I know nothing. Nothing.
Apparently it's a battle, man. Talking about really quickly art house cinema stuff. The Brattle has God, what's that film coming up? If there's one I can recommend this week that people go see at the Brattle, it's if I get this podcast published in time, it's on September 22nd. Tucker and Dale versus Evil, 7:30. One showing at the Brattle in
Sponsored
Cambridge.
by the Independent Film Festival Boston.
Right.
So the way
The
you get
awesome
tickets would be to
IFFB.
sign up on their website to be on their mailing list or become a member or something like that. I don't know if the Brattle is selling tickets too.
I don't know. I don't know much about this film.
Have you
I
seen
thought
previews
that
for it
they-
or trailers for it?
No.
It you know how every especially the bad horror movies, it's like, oh, kids going hiking, kids going canoeing, they end up in the woods and they always find these crazy rednecks, kind of like Straw Dogs, which we'll get to later.
Is this a
but-
local production?
No.
Like a low budget?
No, I don't think
I
so.
guess I'm confused.
But it's a story
No.
about these teenagers go out in the woods and they meet these rednecks. The rednecks are really nice guys in this movie,
As opposed to another one we're going to talk about in
right?
this episode.
But these guys, through a series of accidents, the teenagers start dying around them anyway. Like they don't jam the teenager into a wood chipper; they bump into him accidentally, and the kid falls into the wood chipper. So it's like a dark comedy that way, where I don't think it's really a spoof so much as that these guys are just really nice guys who just accidentally kill a bunch of teenagers. I'm looking forward to it. We're seeing it on Tuesday afternoon, so I'm sorry.
So from what I know, which isn't much, but still, it's got that something that says this is kind of in my zone. This I think
Plus
I can
it's
recommend
a
to
chance
people.
the IFFB puts on a good presentation.
Yeah.
Brian or someone will be there to introduce it. You're there with movie fans.
Yeah.
It's not like just a press free
That's
screening with a pass hole show.
For those who don't know, Brian Tam, he's the programmer. I think?
one of
the programmers,
programmers,
for the
yeah.
Independent Film Festival Boston, and we had him on as a guest. If you ever need to introduce a movie, he is the best guy to do it.
Yeah, he'd be a
He's-
great MC at any event.
Yeah,
He's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
that's a real value. What he does, I don't think a lot of people can do. It takes guts to get up there. Man, talking about introducing a movie, there was this movie Sophie's Key, which is currently playing at the Coolidge, and I recommend it. The press screening, they had a lady come up and do introduce the film, and it was the first time that I ever saw somebody from the audience actually tell the person introducing it to be quiet and like stop, just stop.
Who?
She was actively gesticulating from the press row.
Who?
I don't know. She
Wasn't Dan?
Well, I mean, I was there. I don't know what other journalists were there. I think Dan Kimmel was there. This was a couple months ago at the Common, but the woman was actively telling the person who was doing the introduction to stop because she thought she was going to spoil the film. But the woman who was
Right.
introducing the film was just giving some background on it. And I thought, Jesus, man, that's the film introducer's nightmare. Is a person like that. Anyway, getting on with this episode. In this episode, we are going to talk about...
Wait, one thing
Oh,
about
oh,
film
okay.
introductions.
Yeah.
You remember when Kevin? No, I'm forgetting the guy's name. Waterworld. Dances with Wolves.
Now I'm totally blanking, and everybody
Starring
knows
Dances
Mr.
with
Tin
Wolves.
Cup and
Yeah, Tim
Kevin
Cup.
Costner.
Yeah, Kevin Costner. Remember he did that Open Range?
Yeah.
He came in with the movie
Oh, I remember that.
and introduced it,
Yeah.
and then came right afterwards for a Q&A. Thank God I liked the movie, because there's Kevin Costner standing like 3 feet from me going, so what'd you think?
I really like the movie. In fact,
Yeah.
it's right there on the shelf right behind you.
It's a good,
Open
and
Range.
Annette Bening was in it, and Robert Duvall, I think. Anyway, it was good.
They didn't ask him to stop talking, right?
Now I would. Yeah,
he's
anyway,
got to
so
get something's being done with Kevin Costner's career right now as far as getting things back in order. He's trying to.
Really?
Yeah.
3,000
Oh well,
miles
I
to
just
Graceland
I
2?
had I had recently read about a fella who cannot show any film to his wife that has Kevin Costner in it because she has such a horrifying, horrible reaction to anything that he does because she thinks it's completely disingenuous and it just puts her in a bad mood. So it's like
I think it's a recognized
life with
phobia.
the Kevin Costner landmine.
Luckily, he's not around that much anymore.
In this episode, talking about
Rednecks.
who don't treat people kindly.
Rednecks.
We've got the remake of Straw Dogs from director Rod Laurie, which was before we get into it, it was an uncomfortable Xerox. But let me also say, in this episode, we're also going to talk about one of the more exciting things happening in theaters right now, which is Drive.
Yeah.
And man, that is a good movie.
Yeah.
And there again, my resentment for the director
Oh, let it
is
go,
coming
Steve.
back.
Let it go. Well, here you can rejoice that you're not Rod Laurie.
Yeah.
And we had talked right after this was over whether seeing the original with Dustin Hoffman, directed by Sam Peckinpah. The week before, we saw Rod Laurie's carbon copy. Was a detriment in any way?
It did not help the experience.
No, but at the same time, I've been thinking about this movie a lot, and I really, really loathe it. And I have specific reasons why.
Let's go for it.
Well, it's a story of in Mr. Lurie's take, it's an L.A. screenwriter and his wife, actress wife, who go to back to her hometown in Mississippi after her father dies to take over the house. He's gonna,
Right.
It's a quiet place for him to write.
So James Marsden and
and
Kate
Bosworth.
Bosworth.
And they go back there, and there's the house, and there's this barn that got tore up in a hurricane, so they hire some local guys, including her ex-boyfriend, to fix the
Right. Charlie
barn.
Alexander
And
Skarsgård. The guy is just. He's just. They hired Strange. He's got this like. Alexander Skarsgård, I think, has this like he emanates a certain untrustworthiness, which makes the character both interesting to watch, and he's just like
it works when
not
he's
both
in,
any, which makes the character just interesting to watch.
Well, it works when he's in True Blood.
Yeah.
But in this this is one of the things I have a problem with in the movie. What is this present day?
Yes, it is.
So, in order to make sure we know they're rednecks, they have to listen to Leonard Skinner.
I
Come on,
I wondered
really?
about that because it's a real caricature of
Oh God, yeah.
of
the
of
South
these
should
guys.
shoot-
It's like God's
the
guns and
South
football.
should sue Mr. Lurie. it's
These are Larry the Cable Guys versus
not even you know.
James Marsden and.
But this is a hateful kind of redneck stereotype. You know, they're violent rapists who listen to Leonard Skinner, drink too much, beat each other too much.
Yeah, and they're like they ascribe to this disturbing version of, you know, like religion. You know, supposedly they're good. They go to church. They know what good and bad. You know, their other religion is football.
Right, right. Which
They're
we all
also
know from Friday Night Lights is that's fine.
They also believe they control their town over and above the authorities, who give them too much leeway.
God, way too much. Well, especially because they do give the film a black sheriff, which the rednecks can abuse and ultimately hurt. But here's my problems with this movie, and this is the thing that keeps bothering me. There's a rape scene in the movie where what's the guy's name? The old boyfriend?
Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah, what's his character's name?
Charlie.
Charlie and his buddies trick the husband into taking him hunting. Then they ditch him in the woods. Charlie comes back to the house. Tries to get in. The wife says no. He says, "I'm coming in." She keeps saying no. He rapes her. And then one of his friends comes in right behind him, almost literally, and rapes her too.
I think it was the guy from. I think it was the movie director from Entourage. It was the second rape.
Whichever way. But here's the thing, all right, it happened in the Peckinpah film. There was a rape and then a follow rape where it was a brutal scene. This one, first of all, she's raped by Charlie, and Charlie's trying to make it seem like it's okay because they had a thing before, and he's really a good guy, even though she never responds in anything but a negative way. It's a rape. And then when the other guy's raping her, does Rod Lurie focus on the action itself, on the woman? No. The camera stays on Charlie, sitting there looking all moody and brooding while the girl's being raped. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that, Mr.
Well,
Lurie?
I hadn't noticed that,
things.
but
it just stays
it's certainly,
on Charlie.
in some people's eyes, I guess that would lessen the eroticism of it.
What eroticism? There's no eroticism there.
Having just seen the remake and Peckinpah's version of this,
right?
There is eroticism, but in this, it's not handled as tactfully. It's kind of fumbling.
My God, I thought it was worse than that. I was appalled.
Yeah, it was nothing.
Are we supposed to?
He just doesn't have the artistry of Peckinpah.
Are we supposed to feel sympathy for Charlie now that his rape victim is being raped by someone else?
Well, this is kind of an example of how it just. I think the editing and the camera choices. I get what Rod Lurie was trying to do, but
what?
Well,
I think
this movie is about
during that scene.
Well, because this movie is about, in a way, it's about manhood and ego and sexual politics. It's about control. And I think, if you recall the way Charlie interacts with David plays by James Marsden.
Right.
Skarsgård is very tall. Marsden, I suppose, average height, maybe even shorter.
Right.
But you really see the difference on the screen because Lurie frames Skarsgård in such a way that David's world is surrounded. You get these like camera angles that are, like the camera angle is like through Skarsgård's armpit, so that his arm and his shoulder totally surround James Marsden on a couple of occasions, like when he's talking to him in his car and his house. It's always like Charlie looking down on you, and his fucking contempt. It's also a cultural thing going on here, because he's like Harvard grad, Ivy League guy, pays for things with credit cards, which he was criticized for at the beginning.
Right.
They hold him in contempt. He thinks that they're a bunch of backwater freaks, but nobody's really saying this. But ultimately, when you have these sort of like it sort of becomes about like the meaning of manhood. What do you stand up for? Because when Charlie rapes Amy, who he calls Amy Cakes, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And David has to, like stand up for himself, which he keeps pushing him to do. It's like he doesn't like punish Charlie because he raped her.
Does
But
he
when it
even
comes to
know?
making a stand at his house, it's like this is like he's making a stand as far as like being a man for like as far as like the sanctity of his private property, like protecting his house. Like
Right.
no matter who's in it, even though the town idiot is upstairs.
It's not only the town idiot,
and
it's
they're
a
after him.
murdering pedophile. And that's who he makes a stand for. It's not for his wife. He makes a stand to protect the murdering pedophile.
Right. So this, in a way, it's also like this is kind of a statement. It's not a great movie, but it gets you thinking because it's like a statement about how like there's violence against women, and this is like a man's inept response or non-response to the violence against women. But when it comes to drawing a line as far as invading his property, that's when Marsden
But not to
draws
protect
the
his
line.
wife or
But not to-
family,
yeah.
but for a murdering pedophile. And talk about,
So there's
she's
kind of a-
raped
yeah.
twice. She does nothing about it. She doesn't tell him. They don't call the cops.
Well, I
They
guess
don't do
in the case
anything.
they did.
And one of the
didn't
things, when
really
in the
know.
original movie, you have some of the same situations. You have Dustin Hoffman as the math professor, the meek, mild, physically frail-looking math professor who, mans up and when he comes to defend his home.
Mm-hmm.
Marston's, to me, looks like he just got out of the gym. He's a pretty fit-looking guy, let alone that he's
Like he
Cyclops,
could
but
do
he's
it.
a
It
pretty-
it is a little
and
more
giving him round glasses and that
weird
colorful
when Dustin
smile.
Hoffman is pushed into
Yeah,
that.
I mean, Marston looks buff, even though he's dressed like in khakis and a shirt. He looks buff. He looks like he could at least, and I think that's one of the reasons they chose some of the film angles you were talking about was because you have to think of ways to make Marston look weaker when he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's just
But I think the most disappointing thing of all about this remake is that it's just uncomfortable to watch because it's such a copy of the original. And where I thought the only other things that they were going to do like different was obviously they'll make the break-in where Charlie has to take a stand and defend everybody, and it was still the same. He still had the guy
Right.
breaking in through the window with the glass cutting into his neck.
right.
But there were a couple. They had
nail
the
guns
oil
instead of,
thrown on James Woods, who, by the way, is kind of crazed here.
Yeah.
It's an amusing performance, but boy, he is just he's a one note.
God,
you know?
and it's a loud, blaring, off-key note. I just
But there are some moments that in our screening where the audience cheered, and I think it's more because when you see something so like comically horrific, it just there's a visceral response instead of like a thoughtful psychological. It's not like, oh, we shouldn't be laughing at that because that's wrong. It's like your response when you see his when Marsden as David takes his staple gun and staples the guy's hand to
nail
the
gun,
wall
yeah.
beneath the window, the nail gun. That got a rise out of the audience. Also, one of the best kills I've seen in a long time, and this plays in with the bear trap. So, from that perspective, there was a large amount of audience entertainment as far as that went, and that's just beyond the the whole thing of the movie just being subpar to Peckinpah's because you just can't. Maybe, like that, making a remake of a Peckinpah film, and thinking that if the director just doesn't have the style or the poetry of a Peckinpah film, that you're
40
kind of
years-
working off a very hard hill to climb there.
40 years after it was made, I still found the original Straw Dogs thought-provoking. This one just pissed me off.
Yeah.
You know.
So, people, I would say definitely check out the original. It's new on Blu-ray. If you want to enjoy this new version, probably would do better to not watch the original.
Yeah. I think you better
because
not
it
to
was
go.
just so very formulaic, and I don't know. There's other things that I didn't really think really worked for his character. Like it was better that Dustin Hoffman was a mathematician as opposed to Marsden being a screenwriter who he's writing this
And
screenplay
there
on
was
Stalingrad.
there was a
which is so completely
creepiness
uninteresting.
to the locals in the
There
other
was
one.
that's the other thing. They
weren't cliches.
like
They
there
were
was something
creepy.
really foreign
Right.
about the other locals that made it really
'Cause that was
disturbing.
Santini, the
Here they
London,
are. These other guys are just like good old boys who just have contempt.
Right.
I mean, there was something really like incestuous and disturbing about the English version,
Right.
In the countryside. Here, it's more like Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative, as
Right.
opposed to just like some place that
with
doesn't
with
accept
enough
you.
with enough cliches thrown on, the Leonard Skinner, the pickup trucks, the hunting. And here's the thing,
Men and guns.
You know when I knew this was going to be a bad movie? Opening scene, they're walking through the woods and there's a deer, and it's the most badly computer generated image of a deer. It's a fake deer.
Oh, and the sound effect when the deer jumps over
Yeah.
David, or when the deer
But-
runs away. Well, there's a scene later where the deer
Right.
jumps over David, but when Charlie shoots the deer,
Right.
They're trying to hit you over the head with the sound effects, which is not what Peckinpah does.
No.
This new version doesn't breathe the way the other film does. It's very quickly edited, and it just seems just mashed and mechanical.
And every time there's a deer on screen, it looks fake. It looks like badly animated effect. In the original, Dustin Hoffman plays that god-awful bagpipe music, thinking it's, what the locals want to hear. Here is some Zydeco music that's, played during the rape, and then, is one of the other things that bugged me is the editing. We talked a little bit about the editing before. After the rape scene, Amy Cakes is having flashbacks to it, and this is how Laurie cuts it: football, hunting, rape, rape, football, hunting, hunting, football, rape, rape, football, hunting. I get it. Football and hunting,
Bad.
bad. Yeah, rape, bad. Just look at the way the rapist sat there and looked all sad and concerned when he was watching his buddy rape. Pissed me off.
Watch the original. Get the original on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Do that.
And at least then, it's thought-provoking. If you get angry, there's stuff to talk about there. This is just talking about how bad it was.
Yeah, it was not the. It was kind of a painful experience with a few entertaining kills.
So should we move on to
Yeah,
a good
let's,
experience with some very entertaining kills?
There's a lot that's good about Drive,
Yeah.
and I say this from time to time about films. There's certain times when you become kind of like immune to all the garbage that's out there, and it's just whatever. It's all rote. It's all it's the constant
Mediocrity.
Thank you. And Drive is a great film, and
It is.
and it's
It is.
not, and the way that Ryan Gosling appears in this, it's like it's not even acting as much that he's like this character that doesn't have a name,
Driver.
that
He's
just
Driver.
kind of exists, and we as the audience impose all these things upon him about what he's thinking, what he's calculating, what he's attempting to do, what he wants to do. He's this he's kind of reminded me of like they're going for the Eastwood Man with No Name, Mad Max Road Warrior, guy who doesn't talk much, but ultimately he's a really good guy, but he will do some exceptionally violent things in the name of purity, goodness for someone else.
It is
So-
ballsy too for a director and a star
Yeah.
like this to let silence speak so well in a movie. Especially
That's when I've said this a number
Yeah.
of times. That's how you let a film take a deep breath.
Mhm.
That's how you let us, the audience, relate to the images, the people that we're seeing on the screen, as opposed to these quick editing things like Straw Dogs, which we've recently seen, where editing hides things.
Right.
It also displaces how we can relate to things.
Mhm.
Too much editing means that they're really controlling the film, and they're afraid about what you, the audience, thinks.
Right.
This Drive is it has some calculating sequences where you just the way Ryan Gosling doesn't do anything much. Acting is about small things, as Steve McQueen always says. It's just about the little things, and he does these little things, leaning into the camera, leers, look, and you let that happen. You let it happen without editing. That's cinema,
right?
And it has a mesmerizing effect.
And
that can happen,
right? And that's the thing; it's not boring. It's. I was thinking about this with Meek's Crossing.
Meek's Crossing.
The same thing. It's not. Yes, not much happens, but it's very hypnotic. Drive was very hypnotic. When something does happen, and that could even be just the fact that Driver says something.
With something.
Well,
yeah.
That's an event. When he says something, it's kind of like, wow.
It is impressionable.
You listen.
Yes. Everything's fine until you get stabbed in the eye with a fork.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, I think everybody was just like, God damn, that was fucking amazing.
Right. You just and then that's just it too. It's kind of like Taxi Driver. There's all this stuff going on, but then the final 20 minutes.
Oh, there are some crazy ass awesome sequences in this film. The hotel room, the stripper club dressing room. So this is directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. It's a Danish director who did The Contender, did the Pusher series.
He did Bronson.
What else did he do? Bronson.
Bronson was an amazing movie. And again, it's just a gutsy call by a director to let his movie, to be so brave about the casting. I loved Carey Mulligan in this. Again,
you gotta wonder though, how could such a pixie like Carey Mulligan's character get involved with all this nastiness?
I don't know. She likes bad boys. And the acting performance, the best acting performance I've seen in a long time, Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
Nemo's father as one of the
gangster.
darkest badasses.
It's the gangster with like a little bit of humor, a little bit of a warped view of life, but one that just has a moral black hole.
Yeah.
That he will cut you deep.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
And as opposed to Ron Perlman, who plays like this over-the-top gangster partner of his who's swearing all the time, and he's like this
Jewish gangster who owns a pizza joint.
Yeah. Albert Brooks, soft-spoken but deadly. Again, when he says something, pay attention to what he says. Bryan Cranston.
They're very disarming to begin with, because you think that they're kind of happy-go-lucky in a way about like making money and their dream, which is to. Well, I guess you should start from the beginning. That in the sense that Gosling plays a mechanic who, as a part-time job, does stunt driving for movies, and as a part-time job, also is the wheelman for whoever can pay him to get away from whatever robbery they're doing. But anyway,
but he only drives.
He only drives. He doesn't touch
take on
anything
the
else,
crime.
and he doesn't have a gun.
And if you're not here when I tell you to be here, I'm gone. You've got 5 minutes. 5:01, the car's
He's a very
gone.
streamlined character, a very simple character that is like a great tool. He's almost, it's like he's working in the middle of this noir. I mean, his apartment totally represents who he is. He goes back to his apartment complex. If you call it that, it's this dark, seedy kind of noirish kind of place. He's got a TV table, nothing on the walls, if I recall, and that's about it. And he wears he usually wears the same kind of clothes every day. You know what I mean?
That
it's like,
satin jacket
it's
with
just
a
his
scorpion
thoughts,
on the back.
the way he lives his life sort of says that his thoughts are very simple.
And it's that jacket. He's got
The
this
scorpion jacket.
this silver satin jacket with this big gold scorpion on the back. And by the end of the movie, he's still wearing that thing, and he's been through a lot. It's not the pristine outfit it was when he started. But
So when he leans into the
still
camera,
wears it.
just sprayed in blood, it's like
Well, that's
it's like it's like a different version of an action figure that's been dipped in a different color.
That's if they have the Drive action figure, it should be the blood spattered satin jacket, or that change one. Here it's the clean. This is before. This is after. But you talked about all this stuff that's going on, there's never a voiceover to explain why does he do the crime? Why doesn't he, why isn't he a full-time stunt driver? Where's he from? There's none of that. Again, we read into it. We have our theories of why this guy has to be a criminal too, but there's never a line that says, oh, I do it for the thrill, or I do it for the money.
I think a lot of things are, and script-driven narratives are great, but a lot of the stories told can be really imparted to the audience without that. You can tell the story visually, and that's what Refn does. And his talent in doing this is unquestionable. I mean, this is a film that is made, and we've seen a lot of bad films. This is a film that really says this is made by a talented filmmaker.
Right.
He has the ability to he has the trust in his audience to know that you can go with this, and there's no questioning like that. This movie has like a laser-like, streamlined laser-like mood, a mode that Gosling's character operates in, and at some point you think it's going to break. And what leads to this is that a couple doors down in his apartment complex, he meets Carey Mulligan, who has I think she's still married, but her husband is in prison, and they have a young kid who he comes over and helps her with stuff. It's he inevitably they have this sexual tension, but I believe that Gosling's character, which we have to refer to him as because he has no name, believes. Yeah, he's the driver. He's him. He's the kid. He believes that she represents, like Philip Seymour Hoffman would say in State and Main, purity. Like this is right. This is good, and and he will chivalrously do what needs to be done to make sure that her life is okay.
Right.
So when her husband comes back from prison, he is coming back to the apartment building one day, and he sees this guy beat on by some Russian thugs, just bludgeoned. And so there's this point where you wonder what he's going to do. And her husband, who you think is going to be like super pissed at him because he would have suspected maybe something was going on between Mulligan and Gosling, but anyway, they develop a respect enough that after Gosling sees him beaten, Mulligan's husband opens up to him and says, "I'm being forced to, he has to make good on a loan that the interest just keeps getting more and more insane. First it was 1,000, then 2,000, then 4,000, and now it's 10,000. It could be anything the next day. So he is being coerced into participating in a robbery that's going to take place somewhere in West L.A. at a pawn shop, and all he has to do is make sure that this happens. And then once this happens, he's out. And Carey Mulligan and her husband are rid of whatever garbage had been going on in their life. So because on that idea alone, the driver Gosling says he's asked for he says he'll help him out. He'll be there as the driver, and like you had said before, this is what I do. This is how I operate, and we're going to do this. And I love that scene before her husband goes into the pawn shop where he says, "Okay, good thoughts here. You're going to be here, and you're going to be back here in 5 minutes, and all's going to go well." Well, obviously, it doesn't, as we know how these things go. But what's interesting here is these vendettas. You know that something bad is going to happen, but all these vendettas that people have against each other start coming out, and Gosling finds himself with $1 million in cash in the back of his car, and not even wanting the money, just wanting to get out and do the right thing and make sure that Carey Mulligan is, taken care of. So he's not in it for the money. He's he is like caught in a spider web of fucking vendettas, and hunted. Yeah. And hunted.
He not only has $1 million when he leaves the pawn shop, he has a girl with him too.
Right, Christina Hendricks. Yeah. And this, for me, his ability to be very minimalist in everything he does, I believe that gives a character. We impart him as the hero to him, this ability to sort of have a certain sense just before something's going to happen. There's a scene that takes place in the hotel room when he coerces her to tell him exactly what's going on, and he finds out, what's going on, the levels, the depths here, how Albert Brooks is involved in everything. And what happens in the hotel room is insane. What happens in the elevator is insane. What happens in the freaking strip club dress room? Because when he wants his information, he says, you tell me what I want to know, or I'm going to kick your fucking teeth into the back of your throat. And this doesn't come from someone who we perceive him as saying this all through the movie. He just says this a few times.
Right.
And when he says it, you're like, holy fuck, he means it. And he means it. He will kick your teeth into the back of your throat. Mm-hmm. And it scares the crap out of Christina Hendricks. And the scene that it's great stuff. I was like, there was a part of me that was like really impressed, but then I was also like, holy crap, man, that's that's like over the top insane. Okay.
Yeah, but it's so cinematic too. I mean, even the violence and I think the level of tension the man brings to the final half hour of the film is just amazing, and I love the ending.
Yeah, a silver Chevy Impala, it's just friggin' awesome car. The movie's like just so cool, and it's not like what I thought the Killer Elite was like. I was a little bummed out because I thought they tried really hard to be cool, and it didn't work.
Right.
Sean Burns would disagree with me on that probably, but I just didn't think I was kind of embarrassed because they were trying so hard to be cool. But this is like a cool or a new level of it.
Yeah, they're not trying.
Damn
they
good.
Are.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's almost like a noir. Mm. And do you remember that interview we did with Cary Fukunaga?
Yeah.
For Jane Eyre. Yeah. Well, we'd interviewed him a couple of times.
By going through our archives.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Well, he had said, like, in another interview, he came in and we did a roundtable interview. I asked him about this other science fiction project he was going to do. He was like some space fantasy thing, and he's done a couple of films in some different genres, and he had said something I thought was insightful, and that is that in the hands of really what a genre is just a tool, and in the hands of a really competent filmmaker, we learn something about how people act, regardless of what the genre is. Mm-hmm. So even though this drive is, it could be like noir in a way, like a modern noir, the characters are like, it's almost like a cowboy film in a way. It's almost like, The Man with No Name, High Noon, Crisscrossing Vendettas. What's happening here could apply in different genres, but you learn about how people act. And a good director knows how to do this, work with a genre, and then ultimately it's about, what humans do, what they think, how they respond.
Right,
and
right.
Great film.
Highly recommended it.
Yeah. How highly can highly be rated? I don't want to give a movie 4 stars. I'm going to just give it 3.5 and say go.
All right.
You know what I should have done, John? I keep we've done 90 something episodes, and I always forget to say at the beginning of the episode, if you let us know what you think of the show, send us an email at contact@post-movie.net. And then I put it at the end. Everybody says everybody. I mean, the few people I've read online.
That's like
say,
the cigarette
in doing your
after
podcast,
sex,
you put the tag stuff at the beginning.
You don't have a cigarette before you get laid. It's after. See, they've just had a satisfying experience with us, and they're like, oh, how can I get more? And we tell them.
So we're past the climax. This is now the
This is the
and I'm in bed having a cigarette, saying
this is the cold, wet spot of the conversation right now.
And if you're in that mood and you want to leave us a good review on iTunes, that would be awesome. If you want to like us on Facebook, that would be awesome.
Can you drop your voice like Barry White low when you say this? That would help.
If you want to leave us a great review on iTunes, that would be awesome. Or if you liked us on Facebook, that would be even cooler. Send us an email. Contact@post-movie.net, and we will respond.
We will respond.
We will respond. I think I just said respond. We will respond.
We'll purr.
Nicely. So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everybody.